Hey, it's Alex Porras, and for today's steak fried rice, we'll be using onions, green beans, peas, oil, soy sauce, rice wine vinegar, brown rice, eggs, and that'll be about it. So first things first, we want to do, turn on your pan. Just classic pan. And so the main difference between caramelization and the Maillard reaction is not just the compounds that are reacting together, but also the temperatures you need. Because for this to happen, it needs to be at a higher temperature than a Maillard reaction. And so people would think, okay, then how are they actually different? Why isn't protein just combining with sugars present in the meat that you have? Because everything has sugars if it was living, which this was. And that's because of the higher temperatures. These sugars, we have the windows closed. These sugars, they don't have as efficient of an electron donating group as an amino acid would in that nitrogen present. So these molecules have a harder time actually interacting with each other. So this increase in temperature increases the rate at which these molecules collide together. And that's how you get these sugars to interact more together than amino acids. Okay, so I seasoned the onions. I forgot to show you guys that. They've been cooking for a little while. I have the caramelization I want because we don't want them too overdone. I'm gonna add my green beans now and the peas. And let that get warm until we move on to pulling this out and doing the meat. And so talking about caramelization before, this onion here is not totally caramelized. There's still a lot of sucrose left that hasn't been broken down. But if you have time, patience, and love, these are some onions I made throughout the day. It took 3 hours, and you can see the difference in the color, the flavor, the smell, all of it. And you can also unfortunately see what happens when you go past Maillard and then caramelization. You get burning essentially. So that's just, you can see how far caramelization can actually. Okay. Now that our peas, green beans, onions, and technical difficulties are all done, I'm looking at you, Reese, we are going to focus on our meat. Now, meat comes from a living animal. This was a muscle at one point. Ergo, it needed amino acids to make the proteins that would actually create its physical self, what we are going to eat, thankfully. And it needs sugars, which would give it the energy it needs to move and operate. And so, a Maillard reaction is a non-enzymatic reaction ranging from around 140 to 165 degrees Celsius, or around 450 Kelvin. And that is between an aldehyde and an amide group from a sugar and an amino acid, respectively. An amino acid always has a pyridine or purine ring, which always contains a nitrogen in it. That's a great electron donating group using its extra electrons on the nitrogen to undergo a nucleophilic attack from the carbonyl carbon of the aldehyde on the sugar. So, get your pan really nice and hot. What we're going to be seeing in action is these compounds being created. If you've ever cooked in your life, congratulations. You have made a new chemical substance. We're going to see this amazing coloration, this amazing leftovers we get on the plate called fond, that has all of the lovely flavors that you actually create by reacting a sugar and an amino acid in the protein. And so that's what's going to give us all this wonderful flavor. It creates a new ring compound from a condensation reaction and a reductive amination reaction that actually fits on your taste buds when you're eating, and that's where we get all that flavor from. All right, and so for the meat, what we're gonna do, first and foremost, you always wanna salt your meat right before it goes in, not too far before or after. And the chemical reason why is that this reaction, this Maillard reaction that occurs, you're producing water, and so the way that the equilibrium shift is, if you decrease the amount of water in the pan, you'll make it wanna shift right, therefore actually increasing the amount of flavorful compounds you're making. So putting salt onto this steak, not only does it get this wonderful crust that helps with flavor, the salt is actually drawing out all that extra moisture in the meat, and drawing it out because of it gradients and how water is attracted to where there's a higher concentration of solute. And so adding this salt will help pull that water out so we can create more yummy, delicious compounds. So salt your meat pretty generously because you lose 30%, and don't ever crowd out your pan because there'll be too much water and the temperature will drop too low for this Maillard reaction to actually occur, and that's how you get gray meat. You don't actually hit the temperature required to create all of these incredible compounds. So add oil, give it a sec to make it really hot, and then scorching hot pan, you can dump it in pretty quickly. You want to hear that searing, or else it's not hot enough, because we are, in a sense, burning to ensure that this chemical reaction occurs. So make sure they're kind of flat, nothing intense, but good heat. Quick tip, if you want to chop garlic quickly, you take your knife, you have the garlic right there, you put it there, crunch, fall away really easily. My hands are wet now, so not as much, but you get the gist, it'll fall off, you just throw it in. And so if you look over here right now, you're already seeing the change in color, and as it keeps going, you're going to get more brown, which is an indicator that you've created a new compound that is giving you that color change. So really interesting thing, good way to see when your meat is getting cooked into that lovely taste that you want, because you're making new compounds that have new bonding structures that can absorb different wavelengths because of these bonds, because you're absorbing different energies. And when you absorb a different wavelength, you emit a different wavelength, and this is the color change we're seeing. We're watching actual flavor being created in front of us. So we come over here, just pull one out, so you can see how this is gray, but the brown is already starting. And that is the flavor, that brown, that hurts. So another key piece of information you're seeing here, and that we know that the reaction is going to completion, is that in the pan, you can see that water is actually starting to fill it. So you need to make sure that your heat is pretty high throughout, because that added water will decrease the overall temperature of the pan, and you won't get that great brown searing from the Maillard reaction. The water is really good to see because, as I said before, in this mechanism, it's a condensation reaction, so an end product will be water. So this second batch of meat, I put the first one right there. This one was on a much higher heat, and you can already see there's already automatic browning, that like that golden one we really want. And so again, that is from the carbonyl of the sugar, which is the aldehyde, reacting with the nucleophilic amino group of the amino acid, and that creates, the technical term is N-substituted glycosylamine and water. And that glycosylamine then undergoes a rearrangement from the dehydration and deamination to make a dicarbonyl. And then these dicarbonyls can undergo a further change from the Strecker degradation, and this creates an aldehyde with that R group from the amide. That would then create either water, the flavoring from diacetyl, or any of the melanoidians or the brown polymerizing agents that we see right now. I'm going to be adding half of our veggies right now. If any meat falls in, that's fine. Ooh, okay. We're doing this now. A little more than half, but that's okay. That's what cooking is. Have fun. Let it all hang in here a little bit. I see the food just went flying. I'm gonna add my rice now. Actually, before that, a little bit of the rice wine vinegar, just a little bit, because a major rule of cooking is you can always add more. You can never always take it back. So just to know, always taste. But and now we're gonna add half our rice. So just get in there. Good little amount, really jam-packed. And then we're gonna let this chill for a little bit. In a couple minutes, we'll be doing the eggs. Okay, everything's been intermingling. Make sure you turn your heat down. Give that 1 second to chill, like pretty low. Grab your eggs. Always crack them on a flat surface, not a rim. A lot of people like to do rims. That'll actually make the shards go in. If you want to do one hand, perfect. But this requires speed. If you let the eggs sit there, a lot of bonds will start to break and reform, and then you'll get that coagulated eggs we don't want. That is because they have a lot of cysteine in them. That's why the yolks are not, they're liquid, but they don't fall all over the place when you take an egg out. All those cysteines, they break apart in the protein and then reform new disulfide bridges, which creates that clumping. And we don't want that, so you want a low heat to prevent a whole lot of bonds getting broken, and to make sure that those cysteines take a little bit longer to actually put together. So put your eggs in. Oopsies. So 2 eggs in. And you just want to stir them around. Take off the gas if you have to, because that burner is still going to be hot. For this amount, I'm going to add another egg as well. And then there you go. So I'm going to do 3 eggs with this. See you in a little bit. Okay, and so this is our final product. You can see that the eggs are a little bit whiter because I let them chill on the stove and went off to do things. So whatever. Great doneness, and that's it. Easy peasy with what? Onions, butter, love, and chemistry. You can become the best chef in the world. So super fast, super simple, super yummy. Yeah, that's it.